work is based on research and playful interaction with animals. Our paper is co-written with Stefano Gualeni, who works at the University of Games in Malta.
The paper is called Situated Knowledge and Game Design.
Sorry, I cut you off. Thank you very much for your introduction. So yeah, you already covered this the first time. I'm sorry because it's very dark, so I don't think you will actually see any ants on the because they're so quite tiny. So we'll see how it goes. Maybe it's relevant to shortly mention that at the POCG in 2014 in Istanbul, we presented a paper on the philosophical notions that inspired the design and reflections on the tablet game Felino, which was a game for cats and humans that we developed back then and tested actually in an animal shelter. So since then, my PhD thesis and our work has developed more into the area of designing with the animal as a way to rethink anthropocentric practices. And we also switched from cats to ants. So the main question, to give you a bit of a background for my PhD, is how can we design playful technologically mediated interactions both for and with animals? And our goal with that is then to rethink anthropocentric practices that instrumentalize and exploit animals. So taking quite an ideological position in the PhD that uses use from fields like critical animal studies. And this paper is very much part of this PhD journey, and it deals generally with the following four topics that I will briefly break down in the presentation. So we are building on approaches that stem from both posthumanism and critical animal studies and argue that instead of aiming for more general production of scientific knowledge output, what we need to counter this exploitation and oppression of animals is an increased sensitivity towards the animals that arise from local, partial, and situated knowledge. It's based on the idea of harrowing, which I'm going to go into in the next couple of slides. And we propose how such knowledge can arise from the transformative practice of design and game design in specific as a form of doing multi-species philosophy. And then we also discuss a small game design project that involved some unexpected design negotiations with the colony of black ants. And we conclude that then the wider perspective on notions of knowledge and game design could involve animals and elicit changes in our empathy towards other beings. And this could perhaps help us to develop new ideas and knowledges that perhaps favor less anthropocentric futures. So the more we research the complexity of animals, the more we learn about their sentience and their cognitive capabilities, their preferences and their unique traits. And this could elicit deeper and better informed concerns about the way we conceptualize and treat and exploit animals. And it could potentially foster long-term changes in our relationship with animals that will have a positive impact on their well-being. However, rather than using knowledge to minimize animal suffering, it seems that Western culture thus far has mostly developed technology that favors profit and increased productivity. So we could actually argue that designs ranging from horseshoes or barbed wire, restraining devices, or automatic feeding systems, all the way to genetic manipulation, specialized breeding, and animal tracking and artificial insemination, has only allowed for more efficient exploitation and control of animals, and also enabled us to operate factory farming on much larger scales. So in other words, we can argue that this generating scientific insights concerning animal welfare and animal suffering does not necessarily lead to an improvement in their life conditions. At the same time, with people are becoming more concerned with the concept of animal welfare in general, and there is a rise in vegetarianism and veganism, inspired by people's sensitivity and empathy towards the lives of animals. So from this perspective, we wanted to argue in this paper that rather than aiming for more objective and granular scientific output, what is needed is to complement our current way of gathering information about animals with efforts that increase our sensitivities towards other entities on this planet. And here we're looking for new ways to talk about knowledge as inspired by Haraway, and also talking about knowledge in its plural form. So rather than looking for generalizable knowledge claims, we articulated Haraway's idea of situated knowledges that are local and contextual knowledges that arise from perspectives that are partial, flexible, and critical interpretations of possible worldviews that allow for unexpected openings and negotiations with other entities. So when pursuing knowledge to dominant scientific paradigms, researchers usually adopt detached and theoretical approaches. And Haraway would call this a view from nowhere, or the God trick, as she was talking about. And instead, Haraway proposes a different kind of knowledge that values these local and contextual interpretations as an approach that is open to surprises and compromises. So secondly, building also on the previous work of Stefano, the field of digital game design has been understood and used as a tool for self-exploration and self-construction in a number of different contexts, such as professional training or social activism and also philosophical inquiry. So in his work, he argues that through design we acquire new perspectives on who we are and understand and construct ourselves and our world. And in this paper, we focus on the practice of designing computer games with playful artifacts for and with animals, and reflect on how design is an activity that can be deliberately employed as this transformative process. So specifically, we here wish to explore alternative scenarios that help us critically approach the concept of speciesism. And there with speciesism, we mean discrimination based on the basis of species membership. So usually you would say that you would assign more value and worthiness to humans regarding animals as a lower being. Also, as a short note, with design here, we refer to a wider, maybe more modern understanding of design as a practice. So instead of the more traditional view of design as a process of changing situations into preferred ones, we distance ourselves from this solution-oriented or problem-solving oriented perspective, because this ignores the contextual and multi-stable dimensions of design. So we wish to acknowledge that in many cases, some design solutions may be desirable for some and undesirable for others. Because if we only talk about design as problem solving, the question always becomes, who are you solving problems for, and who suffers from these changes? So we see it more as a practice of negotiating situations that are alternative to the current ones. So we thought, what if we deliberately try to use design as a transformative practice that can generate situated knowledges and help us approach the other, in our case the animal, with an openness and willingness to engage with one another in unexpected ways. So this implies that engaging in encounters in which we can get to know the animal and account for the unique qualities that characterize different beings prompts us to pay attention to the animal and respond to each other. So these type of encounters, in our case, game design interventions, and to reflect on those could propose alternative futures with animals and elicit transformations in our sensitivity towards other beings. And Dutch philosopher Clemens Driesen referred to this as the practice of doing multi-species philosophy. So when introducing this term, Driesen was involved in the Playing with Pigs project. And this project proposed a video game that connects humans and pigs over distance and allows them to interact with each other. So using the game prototype as a conversation piece, the designers invited us to rethink and speculate about our relationship with farm animals in this case, through encounters with animals. And similar to Stefano's work in our earlier papers, the researchers suggest that philosophical inquiry and ethics do not only happen through textual arguments, but design work can be a fruitful mode of thinking through materializing ideas and involving the animal in this process. And many of you might also be familiar with the work of Hannah Weirman, who's doing research with 2 orangutans. And this project aims to enrich lives of shelters orangutans through game design. And at the same time, the project also aims to raise awareness around issues related to their well-being and endangerment. And also in Melbourne, in Australia, researchers are working on game design for orangutans, in this case to explore how this effort could elicit more empathy among zoo visitors at the Melbourne Zoo. Here you see an orangutan interacting with a Kinect, but I'm sorry, it's very dark. So to explore the practical consequences of these arguments, we started a project in which we actively tried to engage in a design process with the ant colony, also as a response to the existing field of a game design that includes animals, that focuses mostly on designing with other mammals. So we chose ants because they're fairly remote from our everyday understanding, but could still produce relatively recognizable and immediate responses towards the design interventions we presented to them. So the experimental process that we describe and account for in this part of the presentation were motivated by the following questions. So how can we involve ants in the process of designing a playful space or a game that they can potentially appropriate? So it's important to point out here that in this process we did not really aim to demonstrate playfulness as an activity in ants or try to produce generalizable knowledge claims on ant behavior or cognitive capabilities. Instead, our goal was to use design practices to generate these situated knowledges. that could encourage transformations and sensitivities among designers. And also, this project allowed us to practically question and negotiate our understanding what constitutes players. So instead of defining concepts like play and players as the a priori foundations of this experiment, we adopted a research to design approach, where we let ourselves be guided by the design process to come to new ideas on these topics. So this project took about 5 months, and it consisted roughly of 3 phases: a fieldwork phase, a design phase, and then a phase with reflections. So I'll just shortly go through them. So in the beginning, I acquired a black ant colony, so it included a queen and 15 worker ants, and I had them on my desk at the university where I work. So I spent time with these ants on a daily basis, and I also started noticing how I started caring about these ants a lot, at a very emotional level, and I documented this through autoethnography as well. So I also came to the point that I started to have mixed feelings about the ethical problems of keeping these ants in captivity on my desk, etc. And another very noteworthy event started from my promise to my department head that I wouldn't let these ants escape, because she didn't want to have ants walking around at the university. Of course, the ants managed to escape from their living space anyway, and then, so this escape story involved ants that found a small opening between 2 walls of this plexiglass box that they were in. And in order to make this opening bigger, the ants walked out. They gathered some pieces of carton from like another book or something I had on my desk, and they stacked that in between the plexiglass opening to make it bigger and walk in and out sort of comfortably. And I was very amazed by this, and then I started to reflect on how this escape story could be used actually as a maybe provocative and speculative starting point for a design context that could inspire designers to develop escape room challenges for ants. So for those of you that are not familiar with what an escape room challenge is, there is live action games that you find in many cities where players discover clues and solve puzzles in order to escape from the room in a limited amount of time. So what I wanted to know was whether other people would undergo similar transformations once they start to get involved in the design process with this ant. So the second part of this project, with this escape story as an inspiration, there was an escape room for ants game jam organized during the Student Interaction Design and Research Conference in Malmö in Sweden in April this year. So during this 2-hour game jam, 16 interaction designers and game developers with various international background developed a total of 5 different prototypes for a potential escape room challenge designed specifically for these ants. So during this activity, participants were asked to experiment with the speculative idea of seeing the ants as a player and design a challenge that would not be too easy and not be too difficult for the ants to solve. So in this case, the designers didn't have much information about the ants, so they had to start experimenting and figuring things out through the practice of design with the materials that they were provided with and information that they could sort of quickly obtain, like the dimensions, the weight, and the walking pace of the ant. So for example, some of the designers started their process by crafting metaphors that are taken from game design with humans and then trying out where this could apply to design for the ants. And others tried to envision their ideas by designing puzzle and sort of a level progression while continuously trying to speculate and discuss how the ants would interact with their prototype. I don't know, it's very difficult to see, but in this prototype on the right, so the box on the right there, the designers propose an escape room with 3 different stages. So first the ants had to choose the correct wire that leads to this part on the top, and then they had to push a ball through like a sort of transparent tube which would pivot the seesaw, and then they could escape through this green-red tube there. And believe it or not, then the ants actually managed to escape out of this room. So the first half according to what the designers envisioned, and then they found also an alternative way out. These are some other prototypes of that the students made. So here they had to sort of build a construction onto a higher platform that would lead to the exit. Here they had to build a bridge over a sort of water area where they had to go over. And here they also had to pivot a seesaw and walk on these very thin ropes that they spanned throughout this box. And here the ant had to make a choice between taking a short route with a lot of obstacles or taking a longer route which was easier to solve. And then after the game jam, the designers were asked if this short activity changed their view on ants and their relationship with them. So a frequently mentioned topic in this survey included the designers' consideration of ants being perhaps more playful or smarter or more curious than they would expect them to be. And furthermore, most participants seem to be interested in giving more thought to the idea that ants might do something, such as exploring or manipulating objects for reasons that are not purely functional or done for immediate survival. So these are some of the responses that they gave to this question, that more can be found in the paper, of course. And then also a follow-up survey that was sent out 6 months after the game jam elicited 2 replies, and in both of these the participants shared some stories about how their experiences changed their encounters with ants after this game jam. And it made them feel more curious and considerate toward the ants' life. So in the third phase, we actually wanted to invite the ants to react to the designs that were created and observing the ants' interaction with the prototype. So then I set up a live stream on Twitch and also some other online streaming platforms with the aim to generate conversations and reflections on concerning the ideas that this project proposes. And after the first day of streaming, the Twitch platform actually closed the online broadcast of the ants interacting with the escape room challenge, and they labeled it as non-gaming related content. And this event generated mixed feelings among viewers that started arguing online about the irony of designing escape rooms for captive animals and society's concept of gaming understood as something that is exclusively for human. So these were some of the online reactions that on the live stream of the ant interacting with the 5 different prototypes. So each prototype was presented for an entire week. And the degree to which people shared different forms of empathy towards the ant varied greatly. Some people were very engaged with the interaction of the ant, with each of the prototypes, where others discussed sort of more the cruelty that this project actually inflicts. So over a period of 5 weeks, the ants interacted with each of the 5 prototypes, and the ants actually managed to escape from 3 of the 5 rooms. And also more details about how they did that can be found in the paper and also online. This is one GIF of ant escape that was captured on camera, but maybe it's too dark. But yeah, go there. So in this paper, we followed Haraway's notion of situated knowledges, and we adopted an understanding of design as a transformative practice in which we engage in negotiating alternative situations. So here we see the practice of design as a form of doing multi-species philosophy that allows for unexpected situations capable of stimulating new thoughts, alternative points of views, and previously unexperienced forms of engagement. So with this framework, we aim to expand our moral concerns towards other animals and to critically rethink the relationships that we have with other entities on this planet. And in taking this framework in the practice of design, we then discussed how this project with ants generated new perspectives and sensitivities concerning our engagement with other beings. And these reflections, of course, they are very fragmented and subjective and incomplete interpretations that were gained during the process. So as situated knowledges, they don't really share facts about lives of ants and behaviors. They rather illustrate how the act of getting contextually engaged with the life of other species can be a transformative exercise that generates sensitivities and empathy towards other beings. And I think it's very important to point out here that the ants were not passive here in this project. By being there and by acting and escaping and responding and appropriating these artifacts in unexpected ways, they influenced the way in which these transformations took place and how the project evolved during these 3 phases. So bringing it back into game studies without taking any deliberate sides to the debate of ants are players or not, our exploratory design exercise with ants started multiple conversations, both online and in person, concerning play and what constitutes a player. So what we find interesting here is to see what happens if we try to understand these prototypes in terms of what Stefano here and Jesper Juhl have called zero-player games. So games that generally don't require any input of humans to be played. And we actually feel that this label doesn't really do particular justice to the role of the ants, as then they are reduced to sort of trivial automatic agents. But we believe it's a relevant and stimulating framework to continue these conversations on other beings and their playfulness. So maybe it offers a starting point for further exploration of the concept of ants or other beings as participating to the design and to the game without labeling them as players in the more conventional use of the term or ascribing playful attitudes and needs that might not be that might be very difficult to detect or discuss. So thank you very much.
Thanks very much for those insights into playfulness and multi-species philosophy. Questions?
Yeah, just got one quickly. Something very peculiar about the game you constructed. I would assume that the way we conceive of a game is that the player wants to stay in the game. And you created a game where all the ants want to do is get out of the game. And we also assume that if the ants don't do that, they'll probably die. So, to me, that sets up a very bizarre contradiction to the theoretical framework that you start out with.
Right. I started also very much discovering this during this process of design, where in the beginning I had this ant and I wanted to design something for them, and then sort of in that process also realizing how that completely changed into basically the opposite of this sort of non-speciesist idea that I presented in the beginning. And I think, it became a very difficult idea also to me to have this ants in captivity. Maybe it's interesting to mention that at some point during this, during their interactions with the prototypes, they made another exit out of their nest, and so they could basically go away wherever they wanted. And they started to also sort of enter the rooms from the outside inwards. And so they started to also act in that way, like unexpectedly. And also now the ants are still there, but they still have this hole in their nest. So they're in my kitchen, but they can leave actually when they want, but they don't, because I provide them with maybe enough food and water, so they stay. But of course I'm not sure. But I very much agree with this paradox, basically, yeah, which is also something that we reflect more on in the paper itself.
Yeah, thanks for that interesting talk. I want to follow up on Peter's comment. Like at this conference, I'm partly puzzled by the thing that you're trying. It looks like you're doing behavioral research with ants, right? So I'm wondering what happens if you just leave out the whole game context and call this ant behaviorism? Because I mean that would totally work, I believe. Because if I just follow up on what Peter said, these ants are maybe not playing, they just have an existential drive to survive, and this is what all they do. And we could even say that human play actually originated out of this existential drive to actually continue existing. So first question is, what happens if you leave that whole game part out? Does it actually put you in a more problematic space, or maybe in a less problematic space, because then you don't have to justify all the time why you're calling it a game.
Right.
And the second point is, in Germany we have a media historian who's called Klaus Piers, and he basically showed that there were a lot of different knowledge formations necessary to exist in the world before computer games actually could ever exist. And I said it yesterday at the PhD consortium already, but I have to say it here again. So one of his arguments was this behaviorism and experimental psychology and all these things had to exist beforehand, before computer games could actually exist. So now you're actually leading computer games back to where they actually came from, which is behaviorism. Mm-hmm. So is that a problem?
I'm not sure about your second question, but I think rather than, I mean, at least the way I see it, rather than sort of behaviorism, it's the background from which I'm coming is more like a research through design style approach, and my PhD is in faculty of interaction design, so there doesn't necessarily have to be sort of a playful element to it, but I sort of expected this question also to come. I am particularly interested in taking this approach of playfulness because I think it's useful to work with this as a research project in my case. And it starts basically from this idea that in many, when we propose rethinking ways in which we treat animals, we often tend to use these kind of statements, right? We have to speak for the animals because they cannot speak for themselves. But I think that when we say this, we do not really see animals as agents and we ignore their capabilities to act. And I think that animals can actually speak for themselves and we just can find other ways to listen. And I think that design is one way to do this, but I think exploring this agency through ways in which animals experience pleasure and in which they experience positive, more autotelic experiences is something very interesting and inspiring. But for this paper in particular, we started out writing this more with the idea that ants actually play, and also throughout the design process, it was something that I started from. But when we wrote the paper, we took out more and more and more of that aspect of playfulness, and we basically ended up with the zero-player game idea, where the ant is not necessarily a player. So it also was framed through the writing process itself, I think.
Hey, so let's say for a minute that actually they are playful right now, these ants that you had in your cage. So my question is, if they are, do you think it might be possible that instead of discovering that they are playful, you just created playful ants by showing them the way? So instead of saying all ants are playful, maybe you just make these ants play.
I'm not sure. I think that maybe it's not so important if they're playful or not, or because I think that this is also a very human way of looking at things, and I'm not sure. No. So do you want? I don't know. Can you repeat the question?
Maybe rather than the topic, like, I don't know, we have fish and we interpret another feeling than playfulness into them, like caring for other animals. But we experiment on the fish and see the patterns after we had it in the experiments, but maybe we just created something that we interpret as this, even though usually fish don't behave like that, and we can't really confirm that.
Mm-hmm. Maybe in general, maybe one thing I can say about it is that rather than looking at their sort of always try to explain the behavior of an animal through trying to look at sort of the functional aspects of it, maybe we can approach it the other way around and start from the idea that maybe an animal can actually do something simply because they want to. So rather than maybe saying that it's play or a game or playful, maybe we can talk about something like curiosity instead, or exploration. But I'm not sure this answers your question.
We have time for one more question.
Hi. I'm wondering if the players were your students in discovering, experimenting. I mean, going back to Sebastian's experimental research in games, where they are discovering the behavior of the ants and building structures for them to play with, but really they are playing with the expectations of the ants. Sometimes you can also find divine violence and restricting them in there and trying to see them coming outside. So I wonder if it's still the human who's playing here, not the ants themselves.
So the students that were part of this work, so were not my students, but they were visiting for a conference, a student conference. So they came from different universities, mostly in Europe, but also some outside Europe. And I think that in all of this, the whole process was set up in a very sort of guiding way, also from my part, right? Because I started to introduce them to this idea that ants can maybe be playful, which was already very speculative, right? So it's not in any way some kind of neutral experiment that I was going for. It was very already feeded by me, and also the way I asked the questions in the survey afterwards might have also already introduced them to the idea that they might have undergone this kind of transformation. So in that sense, it's a very very subjective, maybe messy kind of way of doing such an experiment, which is more common maybe in design research.
Okay, thanks very much, Michelle and Stefano, and thanks to all the speakers.